All right, welcome back. It is a lovely Saturday, the Sabbath day, perfect in time for our new moon in Capricorn video, since it is ruled by Saturn. The fireplace just turned off, thank God, because I was burning up. I'm actually still sweating a little bit. I had to change. I got the fan behind me blowing on us because I'm still a little like hot and sweaty. Because we were really hyper focused today on just like a lot of like reading and studying, and then we get carried away and like many hours have gone by. We haven't eaten yet today. It's like, what time is it? It's like going on, it's almost 6 p.m. at this point, and I'm just like, oh God, it's one of those days. So, and again, that Capricorn energy can really lend to like that focus and that drive, which is great, but on the other hand, it doesn't necessarily always serve to some of our other behaviors and stuff. So yeah, we had like, we had our water this morning and we had applesauce with our supplements, and then we were just like so engrossed in our work that we just didn't stop to eat yet. And then I was like, our blood sugar got low and I was like, oh shit. So what did we do? We ordered Vietnamese, one of our favorites. So that's on the way. So this video is not going to be super long because I have to get that when it gets here and chow down. I'm hungry as fuck, bitch. Yeah, so we did try to color coordinate a little bit. So we have our like forest green. This is like a dark green color little cover up things. One of the things that we got from the thrift store a while back, actually. And I did have on a little white tank with a cute little green clover on it that I wanted to wear. But then that just, we were having some malfunctions with that. And I realized, I was like, I cannot. We were going to have a slip. So we can't do that. But okay. Yeah, so we finished up like doing our like reading on this today, and then finished up writing it, and we were like, let's go ahead and film this before tomorrow when the new moon is like officially here, so that if we run into any problems again with uploading, like we have so many times before, then we'll have a little bit more of a cushion and time there to hopefully get it up. Yeah, so that's that. The song that just came to my head actually when I was like sitting here starting to get things together was, what is it? I Don't Feel Like Dancing, or is it just Dancing by the Scissor Sisters? I think it is. Yeah, we were just, I don't feel like dancing, no said no dancing today, don't feel like dancing. Dancing in other ways, just, yeah, in the mind. So let's do this, because again, we're short on time here. I gotta get my food when it gets here. I'm hungry as fuck. New moon in Capricorn. Okay, and again, the phone's kind of cutting off half my screen, so we're gonna just have to work with what we got here. Where do we begin? Here we go. Yes. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign ruled by Saturn, occupying the 10th house, representing our karma associated with work, duty, responsibility, career, reputation, recognition, public image, worldly success, legacy, destiny, drive, motivation, purpose, fulfillment, and authority, self-control, mastery, leadership, societal and political power, government, legal systems, court law, social responsibility, and accountability. And instead of, oh gosh, I just jumped, hang on. Instead of having the like 3 sections at the beginning, we ended up just combining the first and the last one, because it's like, it kind of went hand in hand, and it just wasn't necessary. So we just threw those together now, so we don't have as much, because we get a little carried away with the words. So we're like, let's just we need to chill out here. So that's that little description, and then we go into some of the like other celestial things happening here. We're currently in a Capricorn stellium with the Sun, Mars, Mercury, and this new moon, with Venus recently moving out. I think it was just this morning I got the notification, moving out of this sign and joining Pluto in Aquarius. The sun will be entering Aquarius in just a couple days, where we can expect some major shifts to be taking place around the start of our new eclipse cycle in just a few weeks. The solar eclipses will be on the Leo-Aquarius axis and lunar on the Virgo-Pisces axis. The intense focus or concentration of the stellium and new moon energy can assist us with looking at these particular areas, the karma or karmic lessons associated with them, and how they're at play in both our personal lives as well as the collective conscious. Whew. So that's that. Where do we go from here? Let's see. I thought I wanted to like say something about this. Pluto and Aquarius, we're still in the early degrees of that, since it went, I think last year is when it shifted. Maybe. Yeah. And Venus in Aquarius, yeah, because we're so Venus dominant too, like we can be, or we feel a little more affected by the shifting cycles than perhaps some other people would, and for Aquarius, right, because we don't have too many placements there, it hits like something like our Eros, for example. So it's just a very interesting, I don't know, the way that it like shows up for us is interesting. So, but we're curious how that would be for other people too. But Aquarius is a wild ass air sign, so I don't know. It's could get a little interesting and wild here at the beginning, the end and the beginning here. This is a little crazy what's going on. I'm really excited. Yes, there's just so much going on, but yeah. Okay, let's go into some of the light and shadow aspects then. I keep jumping on the screen. Let's see. We made some other changes to this too today. Okay, light attributes for Capricorn. Disciplined, ambitious, hardworking, practical, patient, meticulous, dependable, reliable, responsible, loyal, determined, structured, authoritative, wise. And then shadow could be ego-driven, dominating, demanding, critical, criticizing, pessimistic, miserly, unforgiving, resentful, suspicious, melancholic, standoffish, aloof, and rigid. Okay. And then, wait, I can't. I don't like using these little keys because every time I like touch it, like jumps to a different part of the screen. Yeah, I talked a little bit before about like part of the strength or lighter side of Capricorn, like being that ability to just like hone in on something, and really go at it. And that can be multiple areas of our life, right? It doesn't necessarily just have to be work, but it's one of the perks to it. Yeah. Oh, and when I was writing this too, I was thinking about different Capricorn people in my life, at least who like their sun is in Capricorn, because we've had quite a few of those throughout our life as well, both like female and male figures. And again, like we tend to get along with them fairly well as far as like synastry goes. So I have like one long time girlfriend of mine who is a sun in Capricorn. And yeah, I love her to death. I think she is all of these things and more, but that obviously plays into like some of her other placements. And then, yeah, there are some other people too, like we were thinking of that, represented some of these aspects. And I'm like, I don't know that we want to get into story time, but I have a memory coming up, and I'm like, I don't know if we want to talk about it or share it, but maybe. Okay, so yeah, there is one person who is no longer in my life, but many, many years ago, who is a Capricorn. And I remember I was seeing this person off, spending some time with them before they were about to travel and go away for a little while. And on one of those like last times before they left, I gave them a hug and I told them that I missed them. And their response to this was to like pull back from the hug, grab me by the like tops of my arms here, and try to like force push me away from them. And they said, "Whose fault is that?" And I was like, "Oh, what the?" So this is like one of those more like, shadow memories of like, but it comes up, because of, these themes we're talking about. And I remember feeling startled and a little confused at the time because I was like, what? And again, because of the way I am, and sometimes I don't understand. I think we've gotten better at it, but especially in the past when I was younger and more naive, I didn't understand certain like behaviors of people socially. And so when this person did that, I was genuinely confused, and my reaction was just like, oh, just love him more. So I I'm just like not letting go of this person and just like hugging them so tight. And they, gave in and just hugged me back. But I just was like, after the fact, I thought about it and I was like, that was kind of weird. We could even call that like a red flag. But I just was so confused. I was like, why? And since then, right, like I would say it would play into some of these shadow aspects, right? And just like human behavior in general, like when people are triggered by something and they don't recognize, they're unconscious of it, or they don't know how to cope in like a healthier manner or like communicate directly like what it is that they're I just got my notification, my food's on the way. Yeah, if they're not able to communicate directly and assertively like about what it is they're feeling or what they're needing or what there's a conflict about, then I mean, it shows up in these more shadow ways. So that's just like a very specific example of, some of that we've experienced from a sun in Capricorn in the past. Yeah. And, long story short, that person went away and I had like written letters to them and then they came back and I mean, it just fell off, and I think kind of naturally, and it just, things like that happen. And we go back to some of what I talked about in the other video too, of like certain like dynamics between people, right? And how sometimes things don't work for a variety of reasons and we don't always understand why that is, right? And I think too, one of the things I've struggled with a lot in the past, particularly like in my youth when I was younger, I didn't understand why some of the people who I considered friends of mine, why they didn't necessarily always treat me like a friend, or why they were unable to like be like a genuine friend. And we have since learned some of the reason behind that, but it just was something I don't know that we were necessarily in denial of for a long time, but I just didn't understand like certain ways of like between like different people, like human relationships, and particularly like amongst the different sexes between men and women. I was really just like gone for a long time. Like I did not get it. I was like, why is it such a problem for us to be friends? And for me personally too, like I feel like when it comes to romantic interests, for example, right? Because this person would have like played like a potential romantic suitor, but it just was not going to work. And I think that friendship is such a core, important, like fundamental thing for any sort of like long-term success in any relationship, but especially if there's like romantic interest or involvement. And anytime that I felt like I had developed that or was in the process of developing that with someone, it just always kind of got skewed and like something would go left and it would not work. And I was just like, okay. So, we never really got too far in the dating world, I feel like, because of like some of the really interesting and strange stuff that we've experienced. But, it's given us a lot of things to think about and learn from and memories, that we laugh at now. But in jest, in joy, not in like, making fun of people, but just like, oh my God, this is interesting. I don't know why. Yeah, so we were thinking about some of that then. And what else? Let's go on from that. So, and then there's a little bit of like my self-doubt kicks in and I'm like, oh my God, should I restart this video? I shouldn't share or talk about that. But I mean, this is one of the things that, we have to fight with ourselves a little bit about, because we were so used to living our life privately before stepping forward into a public space like this, right? And so we were very accustomed to like hiding and hoarding like so many secrets, and not that it's necessarily like all bad things, but at the same time we have experienced a lot of not so great things in our life, or just like questionable interactions. And there is a bit of that fear that crops up in us where it's like, it's not my intention. Like, I wouldn't ever want to, like, target anyone or, like, hurt anyone, like, if they were to ever come across this or something like that. But at the same time, I do want to be able to, like, honestly share some of, like, our life and experiences and stories and things. But there is a little bit of that, like, fear of, like, oh my God. Yeah. But, you know, it's important and it's relevant to what we're talking about here and how we've learned. But let's carry on. We're going to go into the reflection then. So again, we got a little carried away with the questions. So we decided to shorten them a little bit instead of doing 4 points each. I think I cut off the last point in 2 of the sections because it was just getting a little ridiculous. So again, a little tiny little change. Nothing too crazy, but a little bit. Okay, work, legacy, and authority is what we split it up into based off of the karmas. So, what purpose or meaning do I find in my career or the work I currently do? How satisfied am I with it? What am I able to do differently to feel more satisfied in my career or work life? In what ways does my current work reflect who I am and how I perceive myself? How am I currently perceived by others in the work that I do? How would I like to be perceived by them? What is my definition of success in the world? What have I managed to accomplish? What have I managed to accomplish? Hang on, we're doing a little typo. What have I managed to accomplish? How? we're glitching out here. Wait. How have I managed to accomplish what I have thus far? No, that was right. We just were like, our brain wasn't computing. Okay. What am I needing to incorporate or change in order to become more successful or accomplish more of my professional goals? So again, with these questions, these very directly link to our Saturn return. I think for all 3 of these sections, again, we could talk about each one of them because these are the questions that I was asking myself during that time, specifically because of our own placement of like our 10th house containing our Saturn, as well as a few other things. And for us, you know, it sits in Pisces, but just the 10th house karma in general, like these are the things that we were asking ourselves and, you know, relating to like our work and career and all that stuff. So this is directly coming from all of that. And we might talk about a little bit of them. We'll see where we go here. Yeah, I would say, you know, for me personally, just to touch on this briefly, since I've been working at my current place of employment for, oh my gosh, what year is it? 2026. This year in October will be my 10-year anniversary, dear God. Yeah, because it was October of 2016 when I first got this job. And I can't believe it. Yeah, so, and at the time, it was a positive change for us because I came from housekeeping beforehand. And, you know, I knew that I didn't want to have that be my career and like that be my legacy. Like it's a necessary job, you know, and I really enjoyed my time there. There was a lot that it wasn't like a regular housekeeping job. It was for a local higher end hotel, and it was very like diverse culturally, and I got to meet all different kinds of people there and interact with them and form some friendships. And it was just like, there were certain things about it, like certain perks and benefits. And it was a really neat experience. So I enjoyed my time there. But again, it wasn't something that I could see myself doing long term because I felt, you know, part of me like called to more, like I want more than this. And so I was actually living with an old friend of mine at the time. And she was working in healthcare doing something like similar to what I am now. And she's like, oh, you'd be good at it. You know, you should look into it or whatever. And I did. And then, you know, I got hired right away and I decided to take this job, you know, that I have now. And in doing so, it was a pay cut, I think by about like $4 an hour, you know, and that's without like, that's just like our regular rate. That doesn't even necessarily include like all the like tips and bonuses and stuff too. So we took a serious pay cut to have the job that we're in now. But I think in the long run, it ended up being more beneficial to us in other ways. I mean, again, positives and negatives, because while there have been certain benefits to being in this job that I am now, there have also been, challenges. So, and also, during the time that I've been here over the past several years, like I was really like decided that I wanted to move on from this job and like do something else. However, this time wasn't as easy in trying to find a new job or career. And I ran into a lot of blockages, a lot of obstacles with that, where I would apply to so many different kinds of jobs and get excited about some of them and even think like, oh, this could really be like a good thing. And then just like nothing was working out for us. And again, we were really like digging into like the karma at this time of our own natal chart, because I was wondering like why I felt so blocked and why I couldn't get a job anywhere else. I was like starting to freak out. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Or like good opportunities would come up and then they would fall through. And I was like, what is happening? I blame Saturn. But really, it's just like the archetype and like needing to understand that there's something behind this that I need to learn from it. And ultimately, I would say, as much as I was wanting to move on and like trying to find that in all these other places, it wasn't necessarily like going to a job for like another employer, for example, it wouldn't have necessarily provided me with the fulfillment that I was really looking for, like on a soul human level. There was something much deeper that I was looking for, that I wanted and desired, and that I felt called to. And so it was important, and I felt very pushed and cornered, by Saturn in this way to go towards that. It was like literally like, I'm not allowing you to do anything else. Like, bitch, you gotta go. So that's why we're here now, in part, because I was like, this is it for me. Okay. Yeah, funny how all that works out, but here we are. Anyways, let's continue on. So, legacy. Where do I find or create the inspiration and motivation to continue working towards my life goals and or destiny? What does destiny mean and look like for me personally? How do I imagine my own destined life to be? I love that question. I try to keep these fairly open-ended and not just like to like a yes or no, because I think it's important both with, like even when I have conversations akin to this with people around me, right? It can help to get people thinking, a little bit more abstract or a little more outside the box. And in doing so, creating more of a fluid, lucid, a more fun for me too, kind of exchange with people where I get to watch them and like the gears turning in their brains as they think through some things that they perhaps, like haven't thought through before, or they're just like coming up with it on the spot, or they don't know and we have to like move on to something else. But I get like some pleasure out of that, of like watching that in conversations with people when I ask them things like this. I'm just like, what the fuck? Yeah. So, yes, let's continue on. How do I imagine my own destined life to be? I mean, that like our brains can go to like a million different places like that, but I mean, when I think of something like that, and I did, during that point in my life where I was like, brain just expanding, opening up like in all these different directions and different avenues that we could take to, ultimately get to like some of the same places, right? But it was just, I really like that one. I think that's a fun one. It can be anything, and when we're following our heart, where love leads us, I really truly believe that that's never wrong. Like it'll lead us to the right place, to the right people, the right opportunities, the right time, the right situation, the right, I don't know, whatever. It's just like, following our heart, following our intuition, our higher self, our higher guidance, higher power, whatever, it is that, we won't be led astray. Okay. What am I able to add to my life to feel a greater sense of fulfillment? What are my deepest desires and needs? How am I able to help myself in meeting these? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? How do I want to be remembered for who I am and the work I contributed to the world around me? And again, this was like a conversation that I had with one of my close friends during that time. And he gets really excited about some of these things too. So I remember specifically having this conversation with him over the phone the one day. And then I think we might have talked about it in person again then after the fact. But yeah, I just think that's really sweet, to like get excited about things like that. And I think, again, like we all do, right? If we stop to think about it. But sometimes our fears or our past experiences or even like our current situation, especially if it's kind of like unfavorable, if we're struggling with something, it can block us from seeing or like skew our vision from being able to see clearly like what truly matters to us, like what's important or how we feel even deep down sometimes. So, and that's why it's important too to have community, to have people around us, even if it's just one person, right, that can see us for who we truly are and who is able to like love and understand us unconditionally, like without expecting anything in return, and just like mirroring back to us, reflecting back to us who we are. That, yeah, and we are all that for each other, at different points in our lives. And it's one of the gifts of being human. Okay, let's continue on. Authority. How is my relationship with various different authority figures in my life? Have I ever experienced any resistance or conflict with those in authoritative roles? If so, why? Oh, yeah. This one immediately, I was like, we could go on a whole, like, long story time about this. But there was a particular moment that came to my mind several years ago. It was while I was still in my old church, and they had, done different things with other churches as well, right? It was more charismatic, you could say. And so there was like this neighboring church down the road or whatever that used to hold like a healing weekend, is like something they would call it, right? Like a little retreat. And I went to this with, again, like one of my close friends at the time, and we got this cute little Airbnb. Oh my God, it was like this like vintage, almost like dollhousey, and it had like the cutest little like tea set even, and just, it was so cute. I was like, we're gonna make this a whole experience. But apart from that, right, like being able to stay in the cute place and like be with my best friend at the time, and we were excited to like go and like see what this thing was about. Again, we ran into some like strange stuff, even from the like very get-go, from the start. As soon as we got there, one of the red flags for me personally was that they were having us sign a waiver, like immediately, like when we came in there, before we could even like start doing anything. They were like, you need to sign this. And I was like, that's why, like, and I literally asked that too. Again, like, I don't always understand, like, and for other people in this situation, right? Like they might have just, and they did just like go along with it and not necessarily question it. And even if, I mean, like, is this not strange to anyone else but me? Like, and I just, we just say what we're thinking and what's on our mind sometimes. And we don't even necessarily mean to be like abrasive or like confrontational or rude, but it comes across that way. And we have since learned that, like, we didn't know for a long time that we were coming across that way. We're genuinely confused and didn't understand why. So I was asking, and they didn't like that. There was one woman who worked there. She might have even been one of the housekeepers. I don't know, or volunteer, something like that. And I remember as we were walking up the stairs with like the packet in hand, she tells me, like, in the stairwell and like the dark, like shadow, she told me like a little story of like what had happened before, and like, because of like liability issues. And I just was like, it's just, yeah. So that was just like how this all started, right? And then, it was only supposed to be like 2 or 3 day of like a thing, like not even like a full day, only so many hours. Like it just from the get-go, I was like, what the fuck is happening? And yeah, there was, then once we got into it, there were different activities that they were having us do, and I'm like getting flashbacks, bitch. It just, again, I don't understand sometimes. I'm like, how no one else around me seemed to have any problem with what was going on. I mean, or they did and didn't want to say anything, but like, that's not me, bitch. So yeah, like again, another little example was like in some of the activities of like, they had this girl lay on the floor, this poor sweet thing. I literally wanted to punch someone in the fucking face. I was like, what the fuck, bitch? Oh my God. They had this girl lay on the floor. And then they told the other people who were there, like, and we're just like all in like a little semicircle, right? Like we're here to be like open, like people openly sharing like some of their history and like their traumas and things like that. But then they like used that and it was like re-traumatizing people. And I don't know that they necessarily saw it that way, but like they were going over with this girl about how like she was feeling like or acting like a kind of like doormat to these other like older people in her life, right? And so what they decided to do as like an example of to like reflect this back to her was literally have her lay on the ground and have other people walk on her. And I was like, what? Excuse me? I did not do this. Other people in the circle were getting up and walking on her. And this girl is like laying face down on the floor, crying her eyes out, whimpering. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Excuse me? And they're like, you go. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go fucking walk on her. What the fuck is wrong with you? So it's just one of many, all kinds of weird stuff that was going on. But, and you can see some of that in charismatic circles. But I just was like, we were learning so much through these different experiences. And, so the weekend was going a little off kilter from the very get-go. But what ended up happening then, I think it was on the second day, like I didn't even make it to the third day because on that second day, I believe it was, during one of the activities, I'm trying to think of what we were supposed to do. I think we had a piece of paper, like a notepad or something, and we were supposed to like draw something on it. And when they told us the prompt of what we were supposed to do, it didn't make sense to me. Like I genuinely didn't understand what they were asking me to do. And again, this is why it's important too, right? Like I didn't understand that I might be someone on the spectrum at the time. Like I just was living in my body and my own brain, it's like I process things the way I do, but perhaps a little differently than other people. And so this is why it's important too, right? To like consider like people having different needs and like different abilities of like the way that they understand and process information, because the way that it was the pastor's wife who, because I wasn't doing the activity, I was trying, but I was like genuinely trying to get help. Like I didn't know what to do. She took that as me being defiant and literally yelled like very loudly in front of everyone that I was being rebellious. And I was like, what? It's like, excuse me? And when I was younger, I used to get really triggered by certain things like this. This is just one memory. This is like, there have been many. But I would get very upset in the past when I would get criticized or accused. And again, like openly in places like this too. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I'm just existing here. Like, I'm not like trying to trigger people, or like upset them. I'm literally just existing. But so often we have found ourselves in places and circles and in these situations where we have really stirred the pot and upset some people just by being there. And I didn't understand why for a long time. So all that happened and it caused a bit of a scene, like everyone's staring. And I decided to just walk out and go in the other like break room because I was like, like I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to do. And no one was like able to help me in understanding this better. And I'm now being openly like criticized that I'm like, I'm just going to leave, I guess. I don't know what else to do. So yeah, that happened. And it's just like one example, right? But we certainly have experience with that of like, and this goes back to my childhood too, like my grandmother and growing up with her and how she would have been a kind of like authority in our life. She was, what do you call it? She had gotten custody of me, but it was another word for it. She was my, I don't know, what is it? Power of attorney, something along those lines, like she had legal rights to make decisions for, me and my life. My food just got here, so let's wrap this up. Yeah, and, I mean, from my earliest memories, like with her, how we would, like, butt heads. But I say that loosely because it wasn't even necessarily, like, both of us, right? Because, like, I didn't necessarily feel or understand why there was so much conflict. But, again, it kind of set us up in life for what would then come later on. And so we've had a lot of experience with that, of, like, people in authoritative roles in our life, or who seemingly have some sort of power over us or think that they do, right? And who just, from my perspective, who have wielded it. I'm like, what's the word here? Wielded it and not the best manner, not very justly. Yeah. That's that. So let's keep going on. What have I learned from those who I've perceived to hold power over me? In what ways have I denied my own power and authority in any given situation? What would I change about any of these interactions? And again, like we've mentioned this briefly before too, right? Like the power of walking away. Like if nothing else, like if people are triggered, if they are unconscious of their own behaviors, or like the attitude, the mind and heart behind their behaviors, especially when they are harmful towards us or people around us, people we love, and they're unwilling or unable to have conversation and to resolve conflict in a healthy manner, then it leaves us with little to no choice other than to like walk away. And even when we don't necessarily want to do that, even if we love people very deeply, despite their, harmful behaviors, a lot of times that is what we have to do, if nothing else, because it's not helpful or healthy for us either to stick around in situations or around people, to a certain extent, who are harming us still. Yeah, so that is, a bit of what we learned from some of those experiences. And we've utilized that a lot, and we still do to this day. In what ways have I contributed towards our society? Which systems, structures, and laws would I like to see reformed in any way? If so, how am I able to actively participate in this reformation in a responsible way? This is another one. It would be nice to talk about this too, but I think this is going to play into our devil video that we're planning on working on. I don't know if we'll get it done tonight, but maybe tomorrow, or if not, we're going to try and get it done here by Tuesday when the sun goes into Aquarius. So yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about these systems and the beast system that we mentioned in the other video. So quickly here, we're going to go over some of our personal placements. I'm going to wrap this up because my food's getting cold outside. So yeah, the 10th house is usually associated with Capricorn, and for us that contains our Saturn that I've mentioned so many times now, as well as our midheaven. We actually left that out in some of our other videos, but the midheaven, it's in the same place for everyone, even though it's like twisted a little bit in the chart. It's like the same thing, but this also plays a role like for our work and career to look at that. So yeah, we have our Saturn, midheaven, and our Black Moon Lilith and Pisces. And then we also have our Vesta and Pallas are also there, but 9 asteroids then. So a lot of Piscean influence in our 10th house. Yes, that's that. And then, yeah, it also contains our Persephone, which I mentioned in the other video as far as it relates to like Hades and Pluto. So we got that there too. And then for us, our Capricorn sits in our 8th house, which is typically ruled by Scorpio, which I also mentioned in the other video because this contains our 2 major planets, our Neptune and our Uranus, both retrograde at 20 degrees in Capricorn. And then other than that, we have 2 asteroids. With one of them being Hecate, who, was a helpful figure for us to study and learn about and from during this time as well. So that's that. And then I did write down below here a few different things that I was like reading and studying about and like different correlations that we made. So we can quickly touch on that. The Porva, I don't know if I'm saying this right. I looked it up. I was like, how do I pronounce this? I think it's the Porva Punya. Sounds a little, I don't know. In the 5th house, and this being our Karma Bhava, we were reading about this today, and then going down a whole rabbit hole. Hyperfixation. We were just like, I'm in this for hours. We were looking at the correlation of that for us in our own chart as it ties into the 10th house here. As we're trying to like make sense of like the different karmas. And this is going into more like Vedic astrology, which I do not have as much knowledge about. We've been like learning little bits here and there, but that's like a whole other world, that we want to get into. And we've started learning about like the different nakshatras and different things like that. But it's a whole other world, how everything connects in Vedic. So, but we're working our way through that too. And then I also wrote here about how when I was reading about the 10th house, they sometimes have a list of like people like famous or popular figures who have similar placements. And it was interesting that they had Fiddy. They had 50 Cent on this list. And I believe he is a sun in Cancer as well. And I wrote here, I was like, diddler karma served. Because for real, isn't it interesting how, after all this time, all these years that Diddy was seemingly, getting away with, or people, thought or felt that he was getting away with a lot of the things that were being done in the dark behind closed doors. And then even after the court case came up and he was like seemingly being let go, isn't it interesting how just a little bit of time went by and what happened? Fiddy came through with a fucking documentary on Netflix, which we still haven't even seen yet. I just saw like different clips of like things pop up on YouTube about it, and I was like, oh hell yeah. I was like, that's my motherfucking boy. Take me to the candy shop. Let's fucking go. And so it's interesting, right, too, when we think about how like the different ways that we were all connected with one another and the way that God or like higher consciousness can work together through different people to teach us different things, right? And so that is like, for me, like one example of the ways that, God comes through. He was able to use Fiddy to get Diddy. So love that. And then, what are we here? 10th house is related to all systems of power and order, which ties into this beast system that, again, we want to talk about in the devil video. And so if we can harness the energy of our 10th house and of Saturn, like for us, that is where it sits. But I know for like many people, it's going to be in different places, right? But if we can look at some of these places, right, in our own chart, and then in our own mind or mental landscape of like where these archetypes sit and how they affect us on an internal level, seeking again like self-control and self-mastery over these energies and like how they work inside ourselves and then in our life, then we can reclaim a lot of our inherent power, like God-given authority, to live and exist as like a more sovereign being, where we don't allow people to have any more control or perceived power over us that they maybe once did, that we're not no longer giving our power away to anyone. We take it back for ourselves to use. Yeah, so that's that little note on that. And then I wrote a little note here at the end about Saturn going into Aries, and how, you know, that would have us all looking at, like, even if, you know, we're not going through our Saturn return, because Saturn is still in that place, we could look at that part of our chart, you know, and the different placements, and how we can look to things like the Emperor, for example, and like the major arcana. So like for higher levels of magic, you know, like how we can adopt and adapt to that archetype in our own life. And this is karma around like our father or father figures of strong masculine figures in our life, and what we've learned from them, and how they've shaped our own becoming of like a healthy, strong masculine energy. And not even just as men, but women too, right? And like I've had, you know, I mean, I recognize for myself, you know, I've had a pretty strong masculine energy throughout my life because I've had to, you know, because I didn't have that around me, and so I had to become that. And I think we're all asked to do that in different ways. Yeah. And then what practical burdens we take on towards leaving our legacy. So instead of taking on unnecessary burdens around us, right? Like places that we feel out of control or powerless. And so we're taking on these lessons or this karma of the people around us, right? Often unconsciously, unknowingly. Instead, we're deciding with our own power where we're going to spend it, how we're going to expend it, you know, throughout the day and month and year and our life, right? Like what we want to put our energy towards. And in doing so, what we're allowing to burden us, but in such a way where we can take and find more joy in the process, and like doing more of what we love and what makes us feel good. Yeah, so that's that. I think that's about it. Again, my food has been sitting outside. It's probably getting cold. I'm hungry. So today was one of those days I was like, we're just fucking going at it, bitch. And I can't stop. And here we are. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? No, that's it. I love you. All right. Happy new moon. See you again soon with the devil video. All right. Bye bye. Bye bye. Love you. Bye.